Livestream up first. Testing, testing. Henry, Keith, and Jody. Hey, Jody. All right. Hey, guys, we're going to let it click to 3 o'clock. Let me know if sound is good, volume's good, and we'll get started. Perfect. All right.
We've got Larry from California.
Yeah, if you're in the chat, let me know where you're from,
Mike, Comelec,
who you are, and where you're from.
Jody from Kentucky. Raleigh, North Carolina. Keith.
Nice.
Henry from Mississippi.
Cool. Old Henry from Miss. Good stuff. I'll show you this while we're waiting the last minute or two till 3. This is that Zach blank I kept raving about. I didn't finish it, but I turned it down a little bit, and it's so cool. There's so many crazy colors in here. And then it's like so bright at the top. I'm sure he loves me showing this again. Zach Higgins resin work. This blank is unavailable. Unless you harass him enough, then he might make more. I don't know. No, don't harass him. Unless you want to. Isn't that reverse trolling him when I'm saying he's doing something good? It really is cool. I'm going to try to finish it. I was going to try to finish it this week, and I haven't had a minute to do it. But that's okay. All right. So let's see where we're at. Close enough. We'll get started here. Hey, everybody. If you're in the chat, let us know where you're from and who you are. Say hello. I'm Chad from Turner's Warehouse. Amy is doing the chat moderation. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there. And it's cool because either I'll answer them or somebody in the chat will answer them, which is pretty cool. It usually works out pretty good. We're going to keep working on a custom pen today. Before I get started, this Saturday, the 23rd, we're doing 3 demos here at the shop. We have Zach from Resin Works. He's going to be doing Resin 101 plus a special pour, which I think will be cool.
He announced it on his live.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
What did he announce?
That he's going to do an abalone pour.
Oh, okay. So he's doing Resin 101. So if you're new to resin, or even if you're not new, it's worth watching because you'll probably pick up some tips. And then he's going to do an abalone pour at the end of his demo. And then we got Jim Godoy from Cocoon Blanks. He's going to do a segmenting demo, which I'm pretty stoked to watch myself. And then I'm going to do a cactus juice demo. We were hoping Curtis could make it out, but he wasn't able to make it. So you guys get, what's it called when somebody fills in?
Understudy?
Understudy, I guess, or proxy or something. But anyway, you get a second rate Curtis stabilizer. I do stabilize a lot, so I do know a lot about it. But Curtis is so good; it's hard to fill in for him essentially. But either way, it'll be good. We're gonna have a lot of fun. If you're local and you want to come down Saturday, we are here, and you can come watch in person. If you're not local, you can watch live, or you can watch the replay after it is live. If you watch live, though, you can ask questions because Amy will be moderating and asking questions throughout it. So a lot of fun this Saturday if you're available. Anything else I need to mention? I'll say this, it's a long way off. Well, I say that, but it happens quickly. In August, Amy and I will be at SWAT in Texas, in Waco. And I'll be presenting there, as well as we'll have a booth, and we're going to have a booth next to another vendor, and we're going to do demos and have some fun while we're there. So if you're in the area, or if you've ever thought about going to SWAT, do it. It's really cool. And if you look at the lineup of presenters, it's really cool, especially if you're into other turning besides pen turning. There's a whole pen turning section, but there's like crazy cool bowl and spindle and segmenting and all kinds of stuff. So SWAT in August, we will be there. No Alaska this year. So anything else that I forget?
We have some stuff on sale this week.
Oh, that's a good point. Real quick, because I don't try to make these a lot about sales stuff, but because of the demo weekend, we have a sale that started today, and it's things like, can they see it on the homepage? It's on the homepage. Yeah. It's on the homepage of Turner's Warehouse, but casting stuff, molds, stuff for stabilizing, anything for this weekend's demos is on sale from Wednesday to Wednesday. So if you're into that, check that out because there's a lot of good deals. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Cool.
Sorry, did you ask for something?
Nope, that was it.
Listening to you and reading and listening to you.
No, you don't have to listen. Hey, Braxton, what's up, man? Braxton Frankenberry in the house. Go, I'm sure everybody's familiar with his stuff, but if you haven't seen his stuff, go look at him. Awesome custom pen maker. Might have one laying here. But Braxton does really unique stuff. He makes his own clips and finials and whatever else, and casts his own blanks. So Braxton, thanks for joining us. But if you haven't seen his stuff, go check it out. I'm sure most of you have. All right. Let's see. I always have a Braxton laying here because I show it with the other makers, but it's missing. It's been stolen. Not really, but cool stuff. All right, so let's see.
Yeah, I wonder where that one is.
I don't know. I put a bunch of them away. All right, so last week we made this this body. Here, I'll go back to this. We made this body. We threaded the inside of the cap and the inside of the body for the section. So I've got a little piece for the section here, and then I've got this giant cap that we need to finish up. I didn't do any work to this. The only thing I did all week, I hardly got to turn this week, was I turned this Zach down, Zach Blank, Resin Works, and it looks super killer. So I got to finish this up, but that's the only thing I turned last week, or this week, not last week. But let's do this section. Well, what do you guys want to do? Do you want me to turn the cap first or do the section first? I guess it doesn't really matter. This will be pretty quick. And we are going to have some clear, so we could take a look at this if you want. Should we do that real quick?
Yeah.
All right, we'll turn this cap down a little bit, and then we'll make the section. Unless something goes wrong here. Okay, so again, this is an M13 that we did last week. Boy, it's really dirty. M13, we're doing an M10 inside for the section. And what else? I drilled a 9mm hole for the body for the M10. Now, again, this is an old aluminum mandrel. I would not recommend aluminum. I need to make some new ones. We are going to make some on a live stream. So maybe we can make some out of Durlin or something. Oh, that noise was my collet chuck. Where do you get Durlin is a question. You can get it like McMaster Carr or most like material supply places carry it. And you can even get it in rods, which is nice because then you don't have to turn it. I had a neighbor here in our building gave me a bunch the other day, and it's in these weird shapes, like these big old dense blocks. and they were bumpers, but they're real good Durlin. So I'm going to cut them into long pieces and then make squares out of them to make mandrels or whatever we need. Free material, even though you got to do a little work to make it useful, is probably still better than buying something, especially if it's getting thrown away. But Durlin does work well, and brass works well. So I need to remake these in brass or Durlin, or just use the Beaufort ones that we sell, but I haven't done that either because they always run out. You guys get them. All right, let's see here.
Are you doing the cap at the bottom?
This is the cap. Now let's talk about this a little bit. So I mounted up the mandrel here. And what I want to look at is the depth of the cap is already determined because we already drilled it. Let's see here. Go overhead. But what we can look at, what was that?
Just my phone making noise. I was going to take a little clip for a story on the Insta.
Oh, nice. So what we can look at is the depth of our drill bit, which, you know, I could have just used the measuring portion of this because we measured it. So that's the bottom of the hole. And I'm not marking a perfect line here, but this way we have kind of an idea where our hole goes to. Now this mandrel also isn't great, not only because it's aluminum, but because it doesn't fit perfectly. You can see it's way short. So ideally you'd want the support all the way to the end of your hole. So if you're making a mandrel or customizing a mandrel, you know, make it to fit whatever your design is, and that's going to give you more support in turning. This really doesn't have any support out here other than the tailstock, and when I take it away, it's not going to have any. So if you're making a mandrel, definitely think about things like that because you want it to help you as much as possible. Boy, that is really not great. It'll have to do. So the reason I did that is when I have my body, and I'll just use this other mandrel here, and I call this my shop nib. It's one that got bent, so I don't mind if it gets beat up or something. But if you put this nib in, I'll do it down here so we can see. We want the back of the hole to clear. If I make this section too long, let me show you here. If I make this section too long and it sticks into the body too much, then my nib's going to hit the back of my hole. So you need to consider your sizing of every part, how they're going to work together once you have it. Now, obviously, the threads will be back here, but your cap's going to go onto the top of your threads, right? So you got to make sure that you've got clearance on all these parts. And the reason I have a shop nib is if you're wrong, you're going to bend the tip of your nib. So there's no sense doing it on a good nib. But
That's smart.
it's just best to be as careful as you can. All right, so let's turn this and see what happens here. Yeah, it's a little wacky. So that's the bottom of my hole. That's not going to be the top of my cap, but we'll just put it just a tiny bit beyond because I don't really want the cap any longer than it has to be. Whoop. Well, that wasn't good. What happened there? Did we strip out the threads? Oh, we sure did.
Oh no.
So when you saw that stop, well, it stopped. You know, honestly, it may not have. This mandrel's really, like the threads are almost non-existent on here. I don't know what I had going on. So the threads are still good. It's just these are so flat. I'm not sure what the deal is with these. I need to make a new mandrel for the M13. So actually I'm going to jump from that to the section. Yeah.
Okay, so they're asking for that in the chat.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the section first because it's going to take a little time anyway. And if I have to make a new mandrel, I can do that next time. Whoops. Because I don't have everything set up, but here I'll see if we can Whoops. Here we go. You see these threads are like really flattened. I'm not sure if something happened to this. Sometimes they get used in classes or lessons or things, and I don't know it until it's too late. But that's something's wacky there. Okay, let's talk section. So we're going to make this section pretty much the same as this copper one. Whoop, there we go. I guess the key thing is I want to pick the coolest end, and it's a bummer because there's some really cool colors in that end and this end. I think I'm actually going to take this end. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark it. So this will be my cutoff end here. I'm going to leave it a little bit proud. And I know that looks really cool, but there's some cool swirls and clears in this end. So we're going to start by cutting this tenon. So we're going to drill the hole and cut the tenon. And we're going to use the tenon cutter. So we'll get to see that again. So what I'm doing is just changing out the collet to a size to hold my blank. Let's find that size. Looks good. Remember, you got to snap your collet into your collet nut, and it shouldn't fall out. Then put that on. Now, let's put the end we're going to cut the tenon on. Now I'm going to leave that other end that I need to cut off until the end because it gives me a little more length to hold on to while I'm doing this. If I cut it, it's going to be real short. And that collet may be too small, but we'll find out. Looks okay. All right, so first thing first, we're going to drill a pilot hole, and then we're going to drill our 6mm tenon cutter hole. All right. Now I did have to use the swivel head last week, so I did clean up the end here and aligned the head and the tailstock. Boy, I'm dropping everything. I think it's an Allen wrench, but I'm not sure where it went. Here's one. It might have bounced under. Sorry. There's another. It's like a small black Allen wrench, maybe? Or no? That's all right. Okay. Now I do have a little pilot hole in the blank from the casting, but I'm not going to trust that. So I'm going to lock these down. Oh, thank you. Perfect. And I'm just going to snug this. I'm not tightening it all the way, but it actually looks like we are pretty much center. So the pilot hole that was in the part here in the blank from the little nipple on the plug was fine. All right. Now, one thing I need to look at and consider is the hole for the tenon cutter is 6mm, and my through hole for my section is, let me see, I got glasses on, 9/32. So the 6mm is smaller, so that's good. I can go all the way through. If it was bigger for whatever reason, then I would not want to drill it all the way through because I'd have too big of a hole. So we're gonna go ahead and go all the way through with this because we have plenty of room. Lock her down. And this is short enough I can probably go all in one pass. If it wasn't, you can make 2 passes. All right. Nice and orange in there. Okay. Good stuff. Go for it.
DF says, if purchasing a section already made, like the junior on your site, how do I figure out the thread pitch? I don't have gauges to measure.
So the question was, if purchasing a section that's already made, how do you figure out the threads? Well, you either have to measure them with a thread pitch gauge, or wherever you're getting them has to know one or the other. So like the juniors on our site, I don't know what the thread is. I'll have to see if I have a thread pitch gauge. But that's really the only way you're going to know. I guess you could like thread stuff and see if you can figure it out, but that's a lot of work to test and try and test and try. If anyone in here knows the junior section thread pitch, let us know. Like it's a Dayacom. I can probably ask Dayacom. I'm sure they would tell me. So what I'm doing is setting up the tenon cutter. The tenon cutter is cool because you've got the pilot shaft and these bushings. This is for the M10. So this leaves a 10 millimeter tenon right here. And what I'm trying to do when I'm holding it up is I'm making sure that this cutter head is flat against the setup bushing without being too tight and without being angled. So a lot of times I'll hold it up and look for light. I'm using the light next to the camera. And I'm just kind of making sure that it's all flush and in there correctly. So yeah, I don't know other than measuring it or, you know, having someone tell you how you would know. And you might ask on like the pen forums, because I'm sure somebody out there knows it. And if you find out, let us know and we'll put it on the website. Okay. I'm taking my time because I don't want this to be wrong, because it'll cut my tenon wrong and then I won't have any extra material. So I'm making sure this is good. All right, looks like I got a little angle when I tightened it. You would think it would be metric because like the Dayacom kits are made in Taiwan, so everything they do is metric. So I'm sure it's metric, but I just don't know what it is. There we go. All right. But you can, if you know that kind of information, you can generally get a tap die set for it, and then you can make something to fit it if you're not wanting to make the whole section. Which is something people do at the beginning because it is kind of a chore to make these. You spend almost as much time on these as some of the other parts, and they're so small. Okay.
You're joking in the chat about how there's always a reason to buy new tools.
Yeah, that's for sure. Actually, I need that. Why did I put it back? So I'm going to use the drill chuck for the tenon cutter.
CJ's hobby says measure outer piece to piece will be size, then use calipers to measure thread valley to get pitch.
Well, so somebody put how you can measure it. Good luck. I'm a woodworker, so there's no way I'm going to measure that accurately. But if you can do it, that's awesome. Okay, so I've got the my little guide shaft here, and I said it last week. Mine's a little short because I had to shorten it for a different thing I was doing. So yours, if you get a tenon cutter, is going to have a longer shaft, which is better. But do what you got to do. Now, remember, we only need to cut the tenon as deep as we want the threads. So if I'm kind of mocking up after this one, Although I'm going to make them a little shorter because I didn't make the threads very deep into the body. So I'm just going to mark approximately where I want them. All right. And then also I always say, make sure if you're holding this, hold your drill chuck. Don't hold the tenon cutter, because if it spins, you've got a cutter head up here, as well as the plate, which has corners on it. You don't want that to cut your hand, so hold it in a safe spot. And then you just kind of slowly ease into it.
Braxton says the sections are engineered at 10mm Acme thread.
10mm Acme threads? Okay. I did not know. So I don't know if you can get a thing for that. That's interesting. I'm sure you can. I just don't know. Never done it. All right, looks pretty good. Thanks, Braxton. All right. Now, because we're doing this here, let's do this. I'm going to put my tool rest up, and I'm going to use my little diamond tool here to cut just a tiny little relief on this end. I'm going to kind of bevel the end so I don't have a sharp corner. You could also use a little file or something, but I'm pretty good with this. And I'm going to put a little tiny flat spot leading into threads. Okay. Now, that actually looks quite crooked, so I'm going to use this to flatten it out. That should work. Okay. So we can do our outside threads here for this tenon. Again, it's an M10. These are M10 by 1. This is for the M13. You could do bigger, smaller, depending on what size you're using. All right. This is the niche system here. Well, there it is. I knew I brought it over. So I'm just taking out the little tap holder to put the die holder in. All right, make sure you use the right die, because if you use the wrong die, it doesn't work near as well. We've all done it. I made one. I did a M13 cap, and then I did a M14 on the body, and I could not figure out why it wouldn't thread. And I'm like, it's almost like it's stopping. Because it was definitely stopping. Okay. Let's zoom in here. Maybe here. And I'll just hit this with a tiny bit of WD. Oh, look at the colors on that section here. Let's see. See if it'll focus. Really cool colors on that blank. The WD-40 makes it shine like it's polished. Okay. So I'm going to just slide this up close. And then I've got the motion of this shaft to get it fed up and started. And we can just kind of roll it in. And I'm just slowly advancing it as I roll. And you can see the curlies coming off of there. That's what we're after. Well, maybe you can. It's awful zoomed in.
It's not really focusing very well.
Yeah, it's probably too close. We'll try this one. So the little curly cues usually are a good indicator that we're cutting pretty well. And then we can back up, and that'll kind of knock them loose, breaks them off a little bit. All right. Back up a little bit. Try to clear those out. Some of them are just going to stay in there, I guess. And then we'll go all the way up to the shoulder. Now be careful. You've got a relatively thin piece of plastic here with these threads. So if you keep trying to twist, it'll probably eventually snap off. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, we can flip the die and run it up there again if we need to. However, a lot of times in the body, and I don't know if I did it here, I'll put a little relief at the front so that it doesn't need that, but, oh, see, I just ran out of threads. I'll just, even though that's pretty short, I only did like a tiny little bit of threads in this body for some reason.
Is it because of the clear?
Amy asked if it was because of the clear. That could have been why. I don't remember. That was
Like maybe I remember that.
that was a whole week ago. I can't remember. We'll see if I can do this by hand or not. Kinda. Hand tap. Actually, it works pretty easy. I mean, the hole is pretty much the perfect size for it, so it shouldn't be that difficult, right? Well, that got me a little more. A little more. But I don't really have a relief at the top of this, so I'm going to run into the slope. Yep, see, I just hit that slope. So we'll flip this around. I really should have cut a little bevel on the edge here, and I did not, so that's my bad. My bad. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just flip this die and hopefully get a little more thread out of it. All right. Now the trick is I don't want to cross thread this when I start it. Oh. So I'm going to really watch it carefully. Make sure it looks like it's on the threads. Ooh. So I'm not really cutting anything, and it's threading, so that makes me feel good, but that could be false happy. All right. We'll see if I got it or if I messed it up. There we go. All right. Those guys clean. Feels pretty good. Oh, so close. actually we can, I mean, we're right there. That looks pretty good. We can clean that up with a little bit of sandpaper, which we're going to do anyway. Okay. So we'll just turn this on slowly. And I'm just going to try to hit that back corner and kind of knock off the top of the threads. I think that should be enough for us. See, that's a lot of threads. Yeah, there we go. You don't really need that much, but it's kind of, you know, it's fine. Okay. Very good. So you can see the tenon cutter really makes it easy. And look how cool this is. There's like clear in here. I don't know if the camera will pick it up at all, but this is a cool clear section. Okay, now we need to do a couple things here. Our depths for our drilling for the next stage are kind of dependent on where we're starting to drill from. So since we're going to shorten this blank quite a bit, we should probably do that now, because we're going to be drilling from this side into it. And if we start measuring from out here, obviously it's going to be much different when we shorten it. So let's go ahead and do that. If I had a saw, I would do that, but I don't, so we'll just cut it off now. Let me make sure my length is still good. Yeah, see, my line's a little bit long, so I need to basically cut away the line. Here we go. 'Cause I'm a little long on that. Now I am shorter on the threads like I wanted to be, but this is what sticks up into the cap with the nib. So that's kind of the important part. So actually I'm way long. But we can always check it too to see if that's going to be too much on that cap. Now that we can put this in the body, we got our line here. That's with the section there cut off at the line, we might be okay. We can try it out and see. We can always shorten it. That's not that hard. But we don't want to go crazy and mess up a nib or something. Okay, let's cut this off. All right, I got a parting tool, that'll work. See, I don't have a saw over here, but I got a parting tool, so, whoops. There we go. We'll see if this is sharp or not. Where's my line? I'm just going to cut right into that line. Now I do have a hole through there. So at some point I'll hit that hole and it'll probably just break off. There we go. So there's the other side. Almost dropped my parting tool. One of those days, I guess. That looks cool, huh? Get all that off of there. Now I didn't really get that flat, so I'm going to use my carbide to kind of flatten this as much as I can to my eye here. And what I can do is just kind of line it up and go in and out so it looks straight. I think we're pretty good. All that's coming off the outside anyway. Okay, now we can start drilling. And I've got my measurements here from the last one. There's how much we took off. Quite a bit. All right. So let's get the drill chuck back on here. Get these out of the way. Now remember, there's a million different ways to do this stuff. So find what works for you and go for it. And just try it out anyway. All right, leave that right there. So here's my 4 drill bits that I'm going to use. I guess I'm so zoomed in you can't really see it. So these are the 4 drill bits for these. This is going to be for a number 6 Yovo nib. I got a 9/32. It's going to go all the way through. I got a 5/16. We're going to go 12 millimeters deep with that. This is a 2164. We're going to go 2.3 to 2.5 deep with that. And then this is a 3/8 for 1.25 millimeters. And what we're doing is just mimicking the nib housing so that we can tap it and screw the nib in. Where did it go? There it is. So all those sizes I just said represent a part of this. So the first drill bit is the smallest piece all the way through. The second drill bit is this part. The third is this part. And the fourth is the lip. So if we do it right, it'll match the outside on the inside. All right. So these are little stubby drill bits. You don't have to use these. You can use any size you want. I had a set of these and I started using them for this and it works good. You don't get as much flex, which is nice on this kind of thing. So that's why I use these, but use whatever you got. Move these out of the way. All right, now this one we're going to go all the way through. So let's lock her down. Now we do have that 6 millimeter pilot hole all the way through, so this is a pretty easy drill. All these are, because 6 millimeter to 5/16, which is basically 8 millimeter, isn't much material. So we're all the way through there, I believe. Yeah. All right. Now the next one will be our 5/16. Okay, I just said that backwards. The first one was 9/32, so that's not even 8 millimeters because this is essentially 8 millimeters, 5/16. So the first one didn't even have 2 millimeters worth of material to drill, so that's not bad. All right, now let's measure this. So we're looking for 12, which I've got a line here. It's kind of faint because it's from the past. Let me see if I can remark it here. So I'm looking for 12 millimeters. So I'm going to go just inside that line. And I'm not measuring to the point, I'm measuring to the sides because that's where our cut will be. So we'll get this close. Lock her down. sure I measured that right. Yep. There we go. All right, so that's our second drill bit. That was the 5/16. Now we're going to go to the 21/64. And you can't see it because I'm on that, but I am looking at each one to make sure, because even though they look like they progress in size, it's easy to make a mistake. And it's hard to undrill a blank. I don't know if you've ever tried it. Amy, thanks for laughing.
That was funny.
Amy's laughing at my jokes. Makes it easy. Okay, so this one is 2.5. I have 2.3, but I mean, I'm not gonna cry over point something. 0.2. I mean, that's like the width of a marker. At least this fat tip marker. So pretty much that deep, not much at all. Again, this is just for the nib to sit into the section nicely. There we go. And then our last one is a 3/8. And this one is just barely, you're just essentially making a tiny little cut. And if we can see it, the tiny little cut is for this little bitty lip at the top of the nib here. So, you know, honestly, it's not going to make it or break it if you go a little deeper. It'll just make your nib sit deeper. So you may want to watch it for that reason. All right, there we go. That should be enough. Now, while I've got this on here, I'm going to take some green Zona, if I've got it. There it is. And I'm just going to get the inside of this, or the front side of this. Because even though we're going to cut away a lot of this material, we can polish this up a lot easier and nicer right now. If it was real rough, you could use sandpaper, but I'm essentially just kind of pre-polishing it here. Ow, got hot. So even though you're doing this whole front, you don't need to. I just want to get that little step and everything cleaned up and shiny, especially with this blank being clear a lot. All right. So that looks pretty good. All right, now we're done with the drill for a moment, drill chuck. We're going to grab the niche set again. We're going to change out the die holder to the tap holder. And somebody asked, I forget who it was, somebody asked me about extra of these knurled handles so that he didn't have to switch these out, which I never thought of it till then. And I'm like, of course, why am I switching them out when I could just have multiple handles? We did order them, so we should have them probably on the next round if you don't want to switch them out. Okay, now I got to make sure I grab the right tap. Kind of an important thing. Where are you? There. 7.4 by 0.5. I'm pretty sure that's the Yovo tap. Anybody in here remember offhand? Pretty sure it is. Yeah, it is. I'm like 99% sure. Okay. 99's close enough. So we're going to load that in there. I'm going to give it a little squirt down in there. You don't have to, but it doesn't hurt. Now, I don't want to get it bottomed out. I just want to get it close. Lock that down. And I'm going to go ahead and do this by hand. So I'm just pushing this way and rotating my lathe by hand. I suppose you could run it, but to me, I probably would have an accident of sorts if I did that. All right. And then just back it out. Long way to go. I'm just putting a little pressure so that I clear the threads when I'm done. There we go. And you should have the little curlies like that, meaning hopefully we cut it correctly. Now, we can go and remove this. Oh, thought I was going to get lucky. There we go. Ideally, you'd want to clean this out. Make sure there's nothing in there before you test fit it. But we are going to use my shop nib here and see if we did a good job. Feels snug. Oh. You know what? Oh no. I kind of stuck it in there. I think what'd I do? Oh, broke the feed. It had been cracked forever and I was trying not to break it. Okay. Well, it's not the end of the world, it's just the end of my shop nib. Okay. So I've got a good nib here. I'm going to go slow because I don't want to. Okay. We're fine. Okay. It's down in. No, it's still good. I don't want to mess it up. I think what I did was I went a little too deep on the second to last bit, and so my nib was threading down in further than I thought it was gonna. But it looks good, and it threads, so that's important. Okay. Now the fun part. Where is my... So this is a section nib. Here, let me clean this up a little bit. We're done with this guy. So much work just to hold a nib. Now, when you do this the first time, if you put your nib in and it just spins, it doesn't catch the thread, or it threads in and then it's sticking out, it's usually just a measurement and drilling issue. So you can imagine if your nib goes all the way in and spins but doesn't catch the threads, it's not getting to the threads. So you may have to drill your collar a little deeper to allow the nib to slide in a little more to catch those threads. And then you can face off the front, which is what I'm going to do with this one. If your nib threads in but then stops too high, you're probably short on your, let me say this right, second bit, which is what the body, the outside of the housing, slides into. So you can kind of just think about what it's doing and what would cause that, and you can usually figure out your problem. Because rarely do they go right the first time, but then after you do a couple of them, you're like, okay, I kind of get what I'm looking at. You just have to think in reverse, because all those outside shapes are inside, and it works pretty good. All right. So this is my section mandrel. And again, this one's been around for probably 10 years, maybe more. But it's not ideal because I've got this dead space, and I really would rather this little lip right here, sorry, I was off the camera, was right up against this, because then when I tighten it up, it would stop up here. For some reason, somebody made this for me, it stops right here. Oh, you know what? I've got one of ours. Let me go grab one. Oh, I've got one right here. Now we do make these. Here's one. And we make them out of brass now, which is good. So this one's made out of aluminum. But if you get one from us, they're made of brass. So it's kind of the same thing we just drilled. You've got your all the way through, then your threads, then your body, then your lip here. So when you thread this on, that lip threads down there. Hopefully it holds it from wobbling side to side. And then you've got the shoulder of the mandrel to hold it from trying to over thread or under thread. Took me a minute to think of what I was about to say. So let's put this in the collet. Hopefully I have a collet for this mandrel. Yep. There it is. So I'll snap that in. Put that on. Now this is like one of my least favorite things to turn because they're so fragile. I mean, these threads are tiny little threads. And if you have a catch, a lot of times you can spin those threads out and it's kind of just ruined. So you want to be real careful, but even being careful, I mean, things happen. I am gonna, even though the mandrel's almost to the end, well, not quite. It's like, here we can look. It's like, almost, it's to the threads basically, the outside. What I'm gonna do is put a live center on to kind of support this end, but I don't want to go crazy with pressure because I've only got like 1 millimeter of material here, right there. And if I push too hard with this live center, it's going to totally expand it out. So I'm just going to kind of get it up here like snug, and that's it. So I'm going to lock that down. And it may not be full support the whole time, but as much as I can get, I want. Now, one other thing is when you're turning this, you got to turn it to where the section, when it's done and shaped and coming off your body threads, will fit into your cap. So you can't make the section bigger than the hole size you drilled into your cap or it won't fit. You also can't make it bigger than your body threads because one, it won't fit in the cap, and then two, it would block the body threads. But as long as you get it down for one, the other will be the same. So we do have to keep that in mind, and we will have to check it a couple times to see how it's fitting for that reason. All right, let's turn this. Let's go overhead. So you can see this isn't like pushing hard on it because I just want it supporting but not pushing. So that's going to be it. All right. Now we'll try this negative rake. I was having trouble with it last week. It didn't feel very sharp. Get it round at least. So we got a lot of material to turn away here. And then we can worry about shape and design once we get it down a little ways. But one cool thing is we'll start to see the colors that are inside here. Let's take a look. I was looking at something the other day and everybody's advice was sharp tools and light cuts. And I was thinking about it and I was like, I've never seen advice of dull tools. Like it's always sharp tools. Is there ever, like that's kind of a given now. But we can see this body here. So the reason I switched sharp tools, that was my whole train of thought there. But yeah, look at this cool, like the layers of color and the clear. This is going to look pretty neat. But yeah, really sharp tools because we don't want this to catch, and a dull tool will catch much easier. And I'm going pretty high speed here. I'm at 3,300. And I am taking light cuts there. And you can kind of just feel it out as long as you're not getting any resistance. You can increase the cut depth. A little deeper there. And it's so light material and it's so fine that it's just wrapping around it right away. So I'm gonna have to stop and clear this. I don't want to clear it running because I don't want anything wrapping and binding tightly. I'll also get off my headstock here. Always try to keep the resin out of your headstock area. Just ask Zach Higgins. I think he replaced his whole headstock from resin binding up in there.
What?
So, anybody planning on watching Saturday? Watching Zach or Jim? Hopefully you guys will check it out. And they're both good sports. If you have other questions, they're happy to help. All right, let's get a little more here. See there, we can take a fairly good cut. We have a good sharp tool. Pull it, both of them, break it across. Now, it might seem weird that my tailstock is not spinning, but it is still making contact. But I don't want to tighten it because I will push that material out. Resin, especially like Alumilite, in that thin of a piece is super, super soft. Even though it seems hard, whoops, that wasn't ideal. It's pretty soft stuff. So if we put any pressure on it, we're gonna have trouble. Now, let's take a look at this. Get that one out of the way. Oh, sick colors. Can you guys see those? Let's try that. Like aside from just bright blue and orange, there's like layers into the clear, which I don't know if it's going to pick up. But it looks really cool. So what we can do is kind of get an idea here. Now you can measure all this. Like you don't have to put your body on and see if it fits. Ooh, that's dirty. That threaded on really easy earlier and it's not right now.
Very cool blank.
Yeah, this is Hot Wheels. It's one we make here at Turner's. I used to make this kind of exclusively for Jim Hines. He used these a lot, but we make them for everybody. So you can see I'm pretty close to the thread size. I got a little more to turn down, and then obviously this is bowed up here. So I'm going to just go a little further. And now that I've kind of seen it, I can kind of eyeball it, I think, at least a little bit. I don't have a compressor, so I'm going to wipe these dusty bits off. It'd be ideal to blow it out, but so nice and slow, just ease up on that tailstock.
We got a question.
We got a question, go ahead.
Brett says, jumping the gun here, but what adhesive do you recommend for roll stops on caps?
So the question was, what adhesive for roll stops on caps? Pretty much all I've ever used is 2-part epoxy. You could probably get away with like thick CA, but you have a little more time and control with 2-part epoxy, so that's why I've done it. And I've glued a variety of materials that way. Like I did a couple of honeycomb casts with a brass roll stop that I cast, and I 2-part epoxied it, and I never had issues with it. I've done wood on resin, resin on wood, so it works pretty well. All right, so I think I'm pretty close in size. So I'm going to kind of start to shape it a little bit. And I kind of am simple in my shape, kind of a standard. I like just a little bow to it. So it's a little thicker on this end, a little thinner on that end. You can see by the time you have those steps, maybe you can see, I don't know. By the time you have those steps in there, it's pretty thin, but that's the kind of shape I like, so that's what I'm going to do here. You should do whatever shape you like. Or if you're making it for someone, you should do whatever shape they like. So I'm going to flatten it out a little more, just a tiny bit here. All right. And then I think I'm a little big here. It looks like it's tapering up. So I'm going to try to bring this down. See if that looks better. That looks a little better. Okay. Let's turn that off. Give it a quick look. And I'm just using a paintbrush. It's usually got WD-40 on it, so it kind of helps keep everything lubed up and cleaned up. Killer. Oh man, I wish I could show you guys the layers of this thing. Looks cool. Can you? A little bit? Excuse me. All right, now I'm going to kind of do the shaping a little bit after I get a drink. And what I'm going to do is just kind of leave a little bit of a set here and bring my tool in and just kind of cut forward and then cut backward. And I'm just kind of cutting that indent. And you could do some of this with sandpaper if you didn't want to use a tool, but it certainly is easier and faster with a tool. So I'm just cutting that little bit of a dip in there. Come on, get off there. That looks a little big, so I'm going to come back a little, right to about there. And one way to know you've gone too far is if you hit the mandrel, you've gone too deep. Or if it just falls off and breaks. Look at that.
Have you ever hit the mandrel?
Yes. Well, I haven't hit the mandrel. I've had them just come apart in the middle, which isn't great. Okay, I can tell you by the thickness right here, this is too thick, but let's try it. So we'll put this on here. And wah. You can see it now. It looked so much smaller on the mandrel, but it's way fatter at the, whoops. It's way thicker here than here, even though it looked like it wasn't. Probably because it's so far up here. Let's do a little more. All right. Actually, I'm going to pull this away. I think we're past the point of kneading it. Try to keep my shape a little bit. And I think, I could just stick my cap on this end just to see if I'm small enough. Yep, too big still. Way too big. It looks too big now. It didn't look too big before. This is the stuff that just takes a little time. You just got to fine tune it. Now, if you did this a lot, you'd be much quicker, or you'd have a little better system, but I don't make these every day, so there we go. Still a little thick in the middle, but at least the front's good there. See, and even though I didn't put any pressure on my tailstock, I feel like it looks like it's shaped out a little bit, like pressed out. So I'm going to just clean up my little flat spot here. Ah, too much. Completely broke it off. So what I was doing, I was just trying to clean up the end of my tenon here. And it was just enough that it chipped it. I mean, it really shattered it. So there might have been something else wrong in there that I didn't know about. Because that's an unusual break for what just happened here. Tragic. Very tragic. And it's such a bummer because that is a cool looking blank. But I don't think there's any way to salvage that little guy. I mean, it really is jagged. So I probably should have put, that's what I did now that I think about it. I should have put the tailstock back up because I didn't have any support on that little thin, It's weird because you don't think about it at the time, but then afterwards you're like, of course, it's 0.5 millimeter thick. Of course it's going to bend and break. But at the time it was like, oh, I can take care of that, no problem. So I should have put the tailstock back up. Probably would have been fine. Or even just used sandpaper, not turned it. Because what I think happened was where the tailstock was, it might have just flared it a little and I had a little sharp corner. So that's what I was trying to turn off. I wasn't even really trying to take off much material. So that's too bad because it would have looked real good. But
everybody blows stuff up sometimes.
Those things happen. Hey, it still threads in. But at least we can see if our size was good. I think I still had more up here to take off. Yep. So still had more on this end. This end looks good. It's well below the threads, so I think we were okay. Yeah, it happens. It's nice to have extra blanks of the same style just for things like this. This doesn't happen often, but every now and then, usually when you're demoing or live. But it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. I think I said it before, I make a lot of just extra black sections because black usually looks cool with most things. Now these are 14s, so these won't work. But yeah, these are 14s. So I make a lot of extra black ones just for blowouts and things because like this would look, although this one probably wouldn't look good with black, it would look good with white. But you can have these laying around ready to go. That way you can just use them when it happens, but not good for a 13 since it's a 14. Yeah, bummer. Bummer, bummer. That one almost looks like it, but it's still 14.
It would look good with like a straight white.
Well, luckily I have many more of these blanks at my reach. So I actually have other cutoffs from Hot Wheels and they all look the same. I mean, I've got 2 right here that are killer. These are some other Hot Wheels that were a little light on blue or a little light, heavy on clear that I set aside. So I'll make a section out of that. It'll look awesome. So we'll be fine, but sorry, everybody. Things happen. So I guess we'll remake a section. What I'll do is I'll remake the section this week, and then Next week we can do the polishing of the inside. We can turn the cap, and we'll put a roll stop or something on this one to make it not roll.
We need to put an alien head roll stop on Zach.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I'm like obsessed with it in my brain.
Amy said an alien, like a little alien head roll stop on this one, since this was his like planet, space planet one. That's a good idea. So we'll do that next week. I'm going to make a new section, and I'll either find my 13 mandrel or make a new one, because I don't know what's going on. I've got 5 M14 mandrels laying here, but no M13s.
If you make a mandrel, can we make it on the side?
Yeah. So, all right, well, that was kind of a bust, but at least it was fun. We're in the exact same spot we started. Like, I had this at the start of the live stream. The only thing is I don't have a section piece. It's now gone. But, hey, we were getting there. You know, and actually, like, if I was wanting to, and I probably will just go ahead, I would continue turning this for practice, because now I got nothing to lose. I can really go at it. But then you can kind of get a good feel of your section size. So, like, I know I need to turn it up here a lot more. And, you know, you can kind of turn down your mandrel to the size you need for that section. Now, it may differ from pen to pen, or if you have different styles of pen, but at least you could have a ballpark. Since this still threads, I can see. See, why does it turn so easy when I'm not worried about breaking it? That one's got a nice drastic curve to it there. So that's kind of what I like. Maybe not. Oh man, what a shame. That is too cool. And it has some great clear in there. You can see the mandrel reflecting inside there. But this probably, I've got to be careful I don't mess up the inside here. But that's probably a good shape now. Yeah, a little big. It's got a little bit of a swell right here that's rubbing. So, but at least you can kind of play with it and see what's happening. Oh. But there it is. All right, everybody. I'm going to call it there since I have some prep to do now. Don't forget about Saturday. Watch live, or come to the store, or watch later. And then next Wednesday, back at it.
Come join the Facebook group if you haven't.
Yeah, if you haven't joined the Turner's Facebook page, Turner's Warehouse Turning Team, join that, and it's just a fun place to show stuff you make. Or if you have questions or whatever, everybody's pretty helpful. All right, anything else? No. All right. Kind of a bummer, but still fun. So, all right, everybody, thanks for coming in. We'll talk to you later.